In the dimly lit corners of a small American town, where the veneer of normalcy often hides deeper horrors, there existed a nightmare of unthinkable cruelty. The case of Sylvia Likens is a tragic reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the silence that can envelop a community when darkness takes hold. It was the summer of 1965, a time when the world was filled with the echoes of a changing era, and the quaint town of Indianapolis, Indiana, seemed like a peaceful refuge from the chaos of the outside world. For Sylvia Likens, a 16-year-old girl with a promising future, it was supposed to be a time of safety and temporary solace. Her parents, who faced financial hardship, placed Sylvia and her younger sister Jenny in the care of the Banaszewski family while they worked to support their family. The decision was made with hope, but it would soon unravel into a horror that defies comprehension. The Banaszewski home, with its outward appearance of normalcy, would become the stage for one of the most harrowing cases of abuse in American history. The matriarch, Gertrude Banaszewski, was a woman whose own life had been marred by misfortune and hardship. Her bitterness and anger, compounded by personal struggles, would unleash a torrent of cruelty upon the vulnerable Sylvia. From the moment Sylvia and Jenny arrived at the Banaszewski home, the atmosphere shifted from one of benign neglect to a landscape of unrelenting torment. The initial tensions between Sylvia and the Banaszewski children soon spiraled into something far darker. Gertrude, who had initially promised to care for the girls, began to see Sylvia as a scapegoat for her own frustrations and disappointments. What started as minor harassment quickly escalated into a grotesque display of sadistic cruelty. Sylvia was subjected to a campaign of abuse that would leave a permanent scar on the collective consciousness of those who came to learn of her fate. She was beaten, burned, and humiliated daily. Gertrude, along with her children and some neighborhood youths, turned their cruelty into a grotesque ritual. Sylvia's suffering was paraded before the community, a spectacle of horror that was both shocking and deeply unsettling. The cruelty extended beyond physical violence. Sylvia was forced to endure psychological torment that eroded her spirit. She was starved, deprived of basic necessities, and subjected to the whims of her tormentors. The abuse was not confined to the home, but became a public spectacle, with Sylvia being paraded around the neighborhood and mocked by local children. Her dignity was stripped away, leaving her as nothing more than a broken shell of a once vibrant young girl. The turning point came on October 26, 1965, when Sylvia's suffering reached its tragic climax. In the cruelest twist of fate, Gertrude and her children, in a final act of barbarism, inflicted a fatal blow upon Sylvia. The details of her death are too grisly to recount in full, but suffice it to say that it was a culmination of relentless cruelty and abuse that defies human comprehension. The discovery of Sylvia's body by the police was a revelation of unimaginable horror. The extent of her injuries, the signs of prolonged suffering, and the sheer brutality of the abuse shocked the nation. The community, once silent, was forced to confront the dark reality that had been hidden behind closed doors. The case of Sylvia Likens became a symbol of both profound cruelty and the failure of those who should have intervened. In the wake of Sylvia's death, a trial ensued that revealed the full extent of the horror that had unfolded in the Banaszewski home. Gertrude Banaszewski, along with her children and accomplices, was arrested and charged with murder. The courtroom became a stage for a chilling recounting of the abuse, the details of which were so disturbing that they left an indelible mark on those who witnessed them. Gertrude Banaszewski was ultimately convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Her children, who had participated in the abuse, were also held accountable for their actions. The case was a grim reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the consequences of a society that fails to protect its most vulnerable members. Sylvia Likens' story remains a haunting testament to the cruelty that can fester behind closed doors and the importance of vigilance and intervention. Her tragic fate serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can consume those who are left to suffer in silence. The case has left a legacy of both horror and a call to action, a plea to ensure that such suffering is never allowed to go unnoticed or unchallenged. As you ponder the story of Sylvia Likens, Remember that the true horror often lies not just in the acts themselves, but in the silence and indifference that allow such darkness to thrive. Her story is a grim reminder that vigilance and compassion are essential in the fight against cruelty, and that the echoes of her suffering continue to call for justice and remembrance.